And we begin with more bullshit from Howard Schultz. The union-busting CEO at Starbucks is asking the NLRB to put an end to one of the largest organizing campaigns currently underway in the country. So far, over 300 cafes have taken steps to unionize, and baristas won elections at more than 220 of them. The company has only begun negotiating a contract with the union at 3 cafes. Tired of getting waxed, Starbucks is now alleging that officials at the NLRB are coordinating with the union improperly. In a desperate letter to the labor board on Monday, the company claimed it received a tip that baristas at a store in Overland Park, Kansas, were allowed to cast their union ballots within the NLRB's regional offices in St. Louis. Now, the union told the board that those workers had not received their ballot in the mail, so according to NLRB protocol, the workers voted alone in an empty office. But Starbucks claims that amounts to secret collusion with the union. The company alleged, quote, "Because observers were not present, no one can be sure who appeared to vote. Whether NLRB personnel had inappropriate communications with the voters, told them how to vote, showed them how to vote, or engaged in other undisclosed conduct." The company further alleged that the NLRB mishandled ballots, and Starbucks called on board officials to be punished. Just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks here. The union responded, calling the allegations absurd. And in a press release on Monday, Starbucks Workers United said, quote, "Unfortunately, it's now in vogue for the losers of some elections nationwide to attempt to reverse elections by any means they think are necessary, and Starbucks is taking a page out of that book." As More Perfect Union reports, the Kansas cafe where Starbucks is alleging the NLRB had improper influence was actually where the company deployed some of its most severe illegal union-busting tactics. 4 union leaders were fired at the cafe, and trans workers were bullied. Yet, baristas still were able to overcome and vote for the union 6-1 back in February. Under Howard Schultz's leadership, Starbucks has fired 75 organizers across the country, and the union has filed nearly 300 unfair labor practice charges against Starbucks. Baristas across 17 states have been forced to go on strike to defend themselves against the company's illegal union busting. So you know what? Maybe there is actually an argument to be made that the NLRB should put an end to union elections at cafes. Given the overwhelming evidence of wrongdoing by Starbucks, the labor board could just force the company to recognize the union at all cafes where a majority of workers have stated an intent to join. Because by firing and intimidating workers, Howard Schultz has proven Starbucks is incapable of overseeing fair elections, and they're still losing. In other labor news, there's a massive strike underway in Northern California, where healthcare workers say their boss has created unethical working conditions for them and their patients. Roughly 2,000 therapists employed by Kaiser Permanente walked off the job on Monday. They're on strike indefinitely until the company does something about the lack of care it's offering to patients in need of mental health interventions. California law requires providers to offer follow-up mental health appointments to anyone who requests them within 10 days. But according to therapists, that's impossible because the company isn't maintaining adequate staffing levels. So patients instead are waiting months for their appointments. According to SFGate, more than 370 clinicians working at Kaiser have left their jobs in the last year. And although the company made $8.1 billion in profit during that time, it has not invested in hiring more workers. As a result, the few remaining therapists are overworked. One of them told the outlet that he feels stretched too thin to provide the care that his patients truly need. This problem has been known for a while. SFGate previously reported on a letter sent to Kaiser in 2020 by the American Psychological Association. It accused the healthcare provider of causing, quote, extreme wait times for follow-up appointments. The letter described the lack of care as, quote, disturbing. The company was also sued in 2021 for having inaccurate listings in its mental health directory. The National Union of Healthcare Workers has been trying to negotiate a new contract with Kaiser for over a year, but there's been no breakthrough since the company won't agree to hire more staff. The union says there is just one counselor now for every 2,600 patients. Union President Sal Rosselli said, quote, patients are getting ripped off while Kaiser's coffers are bulging. Meanwhile, a similar labor fight is playing out with nurses in Minnesota. On Monday, 15,000 of them, repped by the Minnesota Nurses Union, voted to authorize a strike. The healthcare workers have been out of contract for months, and negotiations with hospital executives over staffing levels, retention, and wages have reached an impasse. The union said in a statement, quote, right now in Minnesota, nurses are overworked, hospitals are understaffed, and patients are overcharged. While hospital CEOs with multi-million-dollar salaries have refused to negotiate with nurses over solutions to the crisis of short staffing, retention, and patient care, the problems are getting worse. Recent studies show that more nurses are planning to leave the bedside while adverse events for patients are increasing. Strike authorization vote paves the way for a picket to begin in 10 days. If it happens, it will be one of the largest nurses' strikes in the nation's history. Looking around, it's hard not to see that the U.S. healthcare system is collapsing as companies seek profit at the expense of patient care. And it's organized workers, not politicians in Washington, who are carrying the burden to try to fix all this. Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our new videos. Also, if you want to see Means Morning News in its complete form, not just the clips we post here, head on over to Means TV and get access to all our new episodes and our entire backlog, plus tons of other great movies and original TV shows.